Complex problems. Water scarcity in the western United States. So what's going on and who needs to know? I just want to start off saying that I'm not like a scientist and uh, I didn't gear this presentation to be for like a scientific audience. So that's why I narrowed it down and chose to do it for a non-scientific lay audience, which means people who aren't really like familiar with the topics and uh, all the science and all that jargon and stuff that are used for when describing all that stuff. So I didn't I tried to like stray away from that. I didn't use any like complicated terms or anything. Um, but I also wanted to gear this towards like people who regionally uh, live in these areas next to Lake Mead and the Great Salt Lake, since like they're the ones that like currently rely on this water. Things aren't looking good for Lake Mead. So yeah, as you can see here, here's a photo from NASA, but from the International Space Station, that shows just how bad the river, the river, the lake has shrunk like in just like a short 20 years. Like you can see like how dark it is, like in this first image of it in 2000, and then like yeah, you can like see the bottom of the lake bed now from like space, and that's pretty bad. So there's an estimated like 25 million people that rely on this water. Like, I don't really know how accurate that is. It probably is a lot more than that. Like, because there's a lot of people that live in like the western, like southwestern part of the country. Like, there's a lot of like states that rely on like the Colorado River and um, all of like the tributaries that it flows into to fill. Like, it's all like it all just kind of like stacks on top of one another, like Colorado River than like all of the smaller rivers and stuff that like it feeds into. Um, it's estimated that about 200 feet of water have dissipated since 2000, and yeah, you can just see it like in the picture, like how dark blue it is, and now it's not. It it poses an imminent threat to like the survival of people in that side of the country, and not only just people, but for animals as well. Things aren't looking good for Great Salt Lake. It probably isn't looking any better than Lake Mead. Like, here's the same satellite picture from NASA. We got 1985 and we got 2022. And yeah, it is not looking very good. I think they recently have just recorded like the lowest water levels ever at Great Salt Lake. And with the drying up of the lake comes with a lot of other hazards like the dust. There's a lot of like traces of heavy metals and stuff that are being carried by the wind. All that dust, like dust storms, are a big uh, possibility too for people that live in and around the area of Great Salt Lake. Uh, I think as the lake has gotten smaller, the salinity has like increased, and that's like killing off like all the, I mean, there's organisms that were able to like live in there with it being a saline lake, but like as the salinity gets higher, uh, it's just gonna eventually kill all of them off. So these waterways are very important, not for just like humans, but for wildlife as well. And humans have really like failed the animals in a way, uh, managing like their habitats. And we've seen it with like deforestation and like how the Amazon isn't even going to be like a forest eventually if we just keep like cutting down all the wood. But one of the biggest points like with animals that they're concerned about, there's like a water bird. It's called the eared grebe. I guess it like migrates here. The Great Salt Lake serves as like a stopping point for them, like in the middle of their migration. It's like an oasis in the desert, uh, per se. But they rely on like a food source here in the lake, the brine shrimp, and a lot of those have been their populations have been declining as well. So like if they don't have the brine shrimp to eat, then like the birds aren't going to have anything to eat. Yeah, as you can see here in this picture, this was like the bottom of the lake, uh, but now like you got this person just like jogging across it, and um, that's like pretty frightening. Like you probably couldn't even see this, like you couldn't even see the bottom of the lake. Like uh, that picture in the previous slide from like the 80s, yeah, you probably couldn't even like see most of the bottom of the lake. It was pretty deep. Uh, there was like some other pictures too of like boat docks that are just like abandoned now, where you used to be able to like go and put your boat in the water, and now you can't because like there's no more water. So the biggest thing with water conservation is like the individuality of it. Like it takes like individual people like conserving their own water. Um, Water is expensive, and it's going to keep getting like more and more expensive, like the less supply that we have eventually. Like here, this is a like a pretty frightening fact. Like uh, preserving the Great Lake is going to cost anywhere between 14 to 98 million dollars. That's like kind of hard for state and like federal governments to come up with, like when they have like other things they need to spend money on. And let's be real, like they don't really care about preserving like uh the Great Salt Lake or like other waterways like that, because we want to have like all the pollution and everything that we have in it now. Like the Ohio River is a good example of that. A lot of the places around here just like dump a bunch of like toxic waste and everything into the river, and it's not good. Yeah, I also wanted to make a point that water conservation is probably the cheapest way of preserving water, that doesn't really require any like federal, and I mean maybe it might require like some policies and stuff, but like yeah, you yourself could just conserve water a lot easier. These are good these are some good simple things that you can do to conserve water. So is the damage irreversible? Uh, NASA and a lot of other government organizations have opened up about this and talking about how like even if we did switch to electric cars and do all this stuff, like there's no way in like saving uh what's left. And like I mean yeah, okay, let me start over. Um we can save what's left, but like there's no way we're going to be able to restore it to like where it was before like we started damaging it all. So here's a video from Inside Edition. Like just look at that, empty. So I'm not gonna play like the other half of the video, but um uh the other half of the video features a farmer talking about his efforts in like water conservation and what he's doing to change it. So like think he installed like a special like irrigation system that like uses less water for all of his crops because I mean like you can't just like stop growing food and like stop your livelihood. I mean like that's his job and like that's how he makes his livelihood and he just can't like stop because like there's not enough water to go around. But he's been actively involved with the state in like implementing new policies and like regulations and water conservation. Also, yeah, there's a lot of traces of heavy metals that are like found in the dust that blows around from Great Salt Lake. So yeah, like it causes cancers and like other different kinds of things. So there's a lot of like health concerns that go into like with the drying patterns and stuff as well. On the good side of things, I was on YouTube a couple weeks ago, maybe like last month by now, but there was some news articles popping up about Lake Mead and a lot of other like reservoirs and stuff in California being filled to the brim, and they had to like do like emergency like flows of water, like releasing it from the reservoir so like it doesn't overflow. Uh, they've been having like some crazy weather and like snow and rain, and they brought a lot of like a lot needed water to the communities and to that whole like side of the country. Think when you live in like the higher elevation places, the snowpack from the mountains will melt and then flood like the surrounding areas. This is a famous picture. This boat used to be a sunken boat in Lake Mead, but now it's like completely exposed and you can see it all. But this whole area was completely dry up until like they just had all this like rain and stuff. So yeah, it looks like it's like halfway underwater again. So that's a good sign. And like I was saying, it takes all of us to um, solve the water crisis. It's not just like on the government and not on like a specific person. It takes all of us working together. And I think I already said too, talking about the Ohio River, and it's considered one of the top most polluted rivers in the country. And like, I mean, pretty sure they find like dead bodies and stuff in it. I've seen stuff like that in the news before, and there's a lot of big companies in Cincinnati. It's like a pretty decent sized city, so like we all, I'm pretty sure here, like we're only like 40 minutes away from Cincinnati here in Middletown. So like I would say like we definitely are using like that water supply as well. Uh, it's kind of scary to think about like if it's contaminated and all of like the toxins and everything in it. But even though we aren't affected by Lake Mead and the Great Salt Lake, we should still practice our water conservation here. Thank you all.